Whitman-Hanson Regional School Committee meeting of June 4th, 2025. I would like you all to join me, please, in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And could we now have a moment of silence, please, for Danielle Diogenes, who was a 28-year English teacher here at the high school. Danny was also involved with the WHEA. She did some negotiations with me way back when, and we keep her and her family in our thoughts and prayers tonight, please. Thank you. Okay, Dawn, public comment?
Dawn Byers, 20 Russell Road. Members of the Whitman-Hanson Regional School Committee, I stand before you as a concerned citizen, deeply alarmed by what appears to be a disingenuous item on the agenda tonight, the vote on the FY26 budget and assessments. This so-called option is not an option at all. It reflects political convenience rather than educational integrity. It is less about fiscal prudence and more about caving to the pressure from the towns to balance their budgets on the backs of children. The agenda item exists because the superintendent and the chair appear intent on reducing the FY26 budget, despite a clear responsibility to advocate for what students need, not what's easiest to fund. This is not responsible governance. It is a retreat from the district mission to provide high-quality education and from your role as a committee to pursue continuous improvement in student achievement. Tonight, you'll likely hear words such as partnership and compromise, but don't be misled. The ask to compromise time and again comes from the children. When towns fall short in their raise and appropriate efforts while generating millions in free cash, the solution is not to raid our children's educational future. You as the committee are here not to manage the town's financial missteps. You are here to stand up for students and do what's best for kids. Some have questioned whether the town's appropriation of the certified assessment constituted lawful approval of the regional school budget due to language referencing a Proposition 2.5 override. But both statute and DESE guidance make that clear that such contingencies have no legal effect. The legal foundation for this is found in 603 CMR, which states, a vote by the local appropriating authority, town meeting, to appropriate the member's assessment shall constitute approval of the regional school budget. This is echoed in DESE's March 2025 guidance that once town meeting votes to appropriate the certified amount, that alone constitutes formal approval, regardless of any narrative or contingent language. Further, Mass General Law, Chapter 71, prohibits towns from placing restrictions on school appropriations. A city or town appropriating body shall vote on the total amount of the appropriations requested and shall not place any restrictions on appropriations. Any language linking the appropriation to an override is non-binding and does not invalidate the vote. The budget as certified and appropriated stands. I urge this committee to do what's best for kids. Do not lower the bar for towns that choose not to prioritize public education, because our students deserve better. You have a lot of work to do tonight, but cutting this budget is not one of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, next we have Mrs. McEwen. Mrs. McEwen, you're up.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Make sure you bring the microphone down. There you go. Thanks, Margaret.
Good evening. Thank you, George, Jeff, Beth, and the school committee members and guests for giving me this opportunity to announce this year's recipient of the John F. McEwen Do What's Best for Kids Award. But first, as a community member, I want to offer my support and appreciation for the commitment to the students of Whitman-Hanson Regional School District. You're charged with committing to a level of funding that this committee will have to recommend to the towns. by making recommendations based on the students' needs within the restrictions of the budget that has been established. You are following the philosophy of doing what's best for kids by meeting that budget. And I understand this tension in the room. During John's 8-year tenure as the superintendent of schools here, he was forced to cut programs, and he was forced to lay off 84 teachers and staff to meet the annual budget. He himself had been laid off early in his career, so he profoundly understood the sense of loss to these individuals and how it impacted their careers. During one particularly difficult time, I remember one of his mentors reminding him that whatever restrictions were imposed, the school would still open in September, and the students, teachers, and staff would be there to do the best job that they could. A fundamental component of education is to recognize success. Awards are milestones that mark the journey of continuous improvement and innovation. They remind us that strides for excellence are a stepping stone to greater heights. No matter our age, it is validating to have someone else recognize our efforts. It motivates and inspires others to do the same. The Do What's Best for Kids Award is given annually to acknowledge the legacy of John McEwen, who served in the district from 2001 to 2009. It was his practice to send a note of praise to an individual who exceeded expectations in doing their job. This award carries on that tradition of bringing attention to those who do what's best for kids without expectation of financial compensation or recognition. Its purpose is to recognize the unsung heroes, everyday heroes, who make the difference in students' lives. Tonight's recipient is an individual who has pushed the boundaries and set new benchmarks in this school community. She's shown exceptional talent, innovation, and leadership, making a lasting impact on her students, colleagues, and inspiring others to do the same. The colleague who nominated her said she has a remarkable talent for connecting with students who may otherwise be overlooked or labeled as at risk. Where some see a hardened exterior, this person sees the humanity within. She is supportive of her students' triumphs, trials, and personal milestones. Whether it is checking in on their grades, touching base with their teachers, or opening her classroom as a safe and supportive space where students can be their authentic selves, or celebrating the smallest victories with a thoughtful treat or gift, she ensures every student feels seen and valued. She coaches soccer and supports students in their other school-related extracurricular activities. In addition to the award, the recipient will receive $500 that can be used for professional development or towards school curriculum or activities. Her name will be added to the list of previous recipients in the foyer of the Dr. John F. McEwen Performing Arts Center. It gives me great pleasure and pride to introduce the 2024-25 John McEwen Do What's Best for Kids Award to high school special ed teacher and liaison Kerry Flood. You will. I know you will.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Like if this was my wife, I'd say 80.
Yeah, can I do one more? Thank you so much.
Wait a second, I want to just hit you something.
All right. Oh, thank you.
This is the certificate, and this is just a...
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'll make them proud.
You will, I'm sure.
Carrie, you don't want to say
Carrie.
anything at the podium there? It's you. I gave you a podium tonight. Like
You're not getting away. You're not getting away.
Yeah, that's a first. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, it works.
All right. The fact that you trust me with a microphone
I
is a
know.
little concerning, all right? I had a whole speech prepared. I can't be more thankful. What you said, those words about me, could go for all of these educators in this classroom, above and beyond, not just for our kids or our caseload kids, but their families, their loved ones. I mean, we're more than just a teacher. We're such a support, a counselor, a friend, a nurse. How many Band-Aids do we give out, guys? Like, come on. I am so thankful. I appreciate it. And thank you. I'll do what's best for kids. Continue to do that too, guys. All right?
Thanks, Gary. Well done.
To Carrie, I offer my heartfelt congratulations. John would be proud to have you receive this award. Your accomplishments are truly remarkable, and we're all inspired by your journey. Thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate the recipient of John's Legacy Award. I leave you with a quote from Teddy Roosevelt that applies to each of us. Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. I wish you well in your thoughtful considerations and resolutions for what you will accomplish tonight and in the future. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take out of order. We're going to have the Student Advisory Council report before we go any further, so you don't have to stay here for the whole night.
Thank you. Riley, Kayla, and Gianna couldn't be with us tonight, but this is on behalf of all of us. Good evening, school committee. Thank you for allowing us to speak tonight. We are so excited to be here. Although we don't have any new updates for you all at this time, we wanted to discuss our goals for next year, any feedback you guys may have, and reflect on our goals that we have accomplished this year. First of all, we could not have had the productive year that we had without the help of our amazing advisor, Miss Dawn Byers. She truly believed in us, advocated for us in times where we felt unheard, and helped us to complete our objectives. Without her, we could not have done it. Last meeting, we shared what we had done this year, and while we are extremely proud of the impact we made on the community this year, it is important to look ahead to next year, seeing as we are all juniors and plan to run for this committee again. Next year, we plan to hold our second annual school cleanup day to celebrate the first day of spring. Many students enjoyed this community service opportunity, and we believe that this event positively impacted the environment and the school culture, and we cannot wait to continue the tradition next year.
One idea that we were not able to fully implement this year and wish to officially start next year is courtyard access during winds. We had hoped to get this started during the spring, but it never worked out. We are hopeful that this will be an option next year and another item we can check off our to-do list. Next year, we plan to start our mini student advisory at the middle schools, which we mentioned this year when we visited the schools. With a representative from the schools themselves, we will better understand how we can improve their school community. With that, we would like to improve our outreach to the middle schools and connect with all students in the district. We're also open to any new and every idea that you guys have and any feedback you want us to know. Our eternal goal is to improve the Whitman-Hanson community. Lastly, we want to mention that next Tuesday we will be attending MASC's Day on the Hill at the Boston State House, where we will be gathering with other student representatives like ourselves, school committees, and various organizations to discuss policy priorities and connect with lawmakers. We're excited for this opportunity to learn more about other committees and laws that we can affect our school. Thank you again for your everlasting support and guidance. We cannot wait for another amazing year. Have a great summer.
Well, we want to thank you for all that you did this year, because you certainly accomplished most of your goals, and they were great. And I know that the grounds appreciate it with the extra trash barrels around. I hope that your next year on your cleanup day is a little nicer than it was this year. That was not a good day. But does anybody have any suggestions, any comments for the ladies? Kara?
I don't know if it's a suggestion, but I want to commend you for all your efforts. You did remarkable work this year. Thank you so much for that. I also am really pleased to hear that you're going to be continuing your outreach to the middle schools. I think that creating a pipeline of student leaders as they transition to the high school, and that connection with kind of students they can look up to is really special and important. And I think kudos to you for putting that effort in.
Thank you.
Yes, Rosemary?
Yes, I'd be interested to hear about, if you give us feedback on what you learned on the Hill and if there were important issues that you feel that we should be addressing. Please reach out and let us know. I probably will be there too, so.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Thanks, Paul.
Okay, thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you.
Thanks.
What?
We need to get Lisa back here if we're going to do negotiation.
Yep. Lisa? Green?
Is Lisa back? Lisa?
Is Lisa back there? Yeah. Lisa, you want to come up and sit at the table for us, please? Lisa is here representing the two towns in discussing for to approve the contract. We have to have a member from the town, and Lisa was chosen to represent Whitman-Hanson for this.
Before she comes up,
She's right here.
Yeah, before that happens,
Can you just pass it down?
yes, I'd like to motion to table this till after the budget, please. Do you have a second to motion? So, I would like to motion to table this until after we discuss the budget, as it has financial implications. Need a second? No, all right,
I'll second.
all right.
Any discussion?
Any discussion? Yes.
I have
the floor.
you have
I
the right to
floor,
discuss
because-
first.
Yes, thank you.
I get, sure.
We are being asked to cut a lot. Hopefully, we don't, and we can honor teachers as they should be honored, but we need to understand how those cuts impact us going forward, because it's multiple tiers of things that we have to look at. And I think that just to be responsible, we need to know what we're working with. And spending before you know what you're working with, it might not be.
Any other comments? I'd prefer not to personally, because we have a lot of faculty here, and our discussion on the budget, I think, is going to take a long time. And I would prefer to do this and do what's right for the teachers at this point in time. But that's my opinion. Anybody else? Okay, all in favor of the motion? Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, no, I think Stephanie had a...
Oh, Stephanie, I'm sorry.
I see Ms. Hill's point, and because she and I have been going through the warrants every week and spending hours every week going over warrants, which I know Ms. Byers had done previously with Mrs. Hill, but the fact is that for us to vote on financial implications of the teacher contract before we know what the financial implications of the district budget are really does not make a lot of sense. And I understand there are a lot of people here looking at me very unhappily, but I do have to say that I think that it's important for us to know how much we have to work with. And if the budget is different, then that's, I think, problematic.
I just feel that they're, in my opinion, the two, I understand how they're tied together, but I also understand how they're two separate things. We have a contract for the teachers that we're claiming that we want to do the best for, and then we have a budget. And we'll be talking more about, what that budget entails, but anybody else, comments? Okay, vote on the motion to move this, move it to after.
To table it.
Yeah,
To table it.
All in favor?
table it for the vote.
To table it till after the,
Well, yes.
Okay, well, yes, really actually to move it,
Take it out of order.
take it out of order. Yes, thank you. Okay, all in favor of taking it out of order? Okay, it did not pass, it stays the same. Okay, now I need a motion on the floor to approve the contract and then for discussion.
So moved.
Second. Okay, discussion. Kara?
In our executive session last week, we had a lot of questions and conversation that left me really deliberating over the past week. And I will say that it's not a decision that I'm taking lightly, but I have been thinking about the experience of my own children who have made their way through the school system since around 2011. And in doing so, I went and did some historical research around this. So so again, my oldest is 18. I have twins who are freshmen in high school. So this may seem like many years ago, but these are kids who are still in the system. My twins' kindergarten experience started with me paying 2 times $3,500 for full-day kindergarten because it was something that was turned down by the district turned down by the towns multiple years, not funded by the towns multiple years. When I look at the teacher contracts starting in 2012, there were years where teachers got a 0% increase, a 1% increase. There are years where they were put on frozen on their steps, so they did not earn their seniority increase. There was, in most years, around 2% increase for our teachers. Couple that with what I know happened and transpired in the district, especially around 2016 and again around 2019, where there were significant cuts to the budget. Class sizes at the elementary school in some cases hit 28 students. We were demanding more and more of our educators who were left. In addition to that, I have seen, I know that post-COVID, as we've discussed at length here, the expectations on educators have just skyrocketed. And I think hearing some of the conversation around Dr. McEwen's award today, teachers are not just teaching content. Teachers are guidance counselors. They are nurses. They are emotional and psychological support. They are the front line with our students. And to not support them getting a cost of living increase feels offensive and I think puts us at a significant competitive disadvantage relative to other districts. I Googled the current US inflation rate. That is running around 2.3%. So a 2.5% salary increase seems well within a cost of living adjustment. Our teachers should not be working harder and taking home less money at the end of the day. So I know we're not at a vote yet, but and again, I know this is not something that I've come to lightly. I know that the towns are strapped for money, but it cannot be on the backs of our teachers, because if it's on the backs of our teachers, it's on the backs of our students. Mrs. McEwen said, the doors will still open. Teachers will still be here. The lights will be on, and everything may look like business as usual, and I guarantee you it will not be. So for me, I feel after a lot of deliberation and serious kind of consideration, I feel like I'm in support of this contract.
Would also like to speak. I know we had a lot of discussion last week. A lot of questions were answered. Do we have anybody from outside? Cindy, would you like to say something?
Good evening, Cindy McGann, WHEA Vice President. Before you vote, I'd like you to take a look behind me at the staff that are here tonight and consider what they do for the children of Whitman-Hanson. They show up for work and give the best of themselves every day, and then many go home and give what's left to their own families, and sometimes that's not enough left to give. Your teachers deserve a contract that values what they do every day and supports them financially and professionally. I ask the school committee to support this agreement and to vote to ratify it. Teaching is an unbelievably beautiful, complicated, and emotional dance. Mastering the steps and delivering a perfect performance takes time and can be demanding, especially when the steps change every time you have to dance. It involves trials, reflection, modification, and dedication to the performance. Please know that the teachers of Whitman-Hanson love your children, and they always give the very best they can. Just like our students thrive with support and patience and grace, we do as teachers as well. We strongly encourage you to vote to ratify this contract. Thank you.
Stephanie?
I truly appreciate all the work that the teachers do. I'm a teacher myself, but I mean, I've had 2 boys go through the system, and I brag about the wonderful education they get. Unfortunately, year 25, I'm good. 24, 25, 26, I'm okay. The increases for the following 2 years are, in my opinion, something that is going to prevent us from giving the students the education that we are supposed to be giving them. We are offering, or the agreement has 3, it goes from 2.5 this coming year to 3.25 to 3.5. That's a lot of money. That means if we change our budget and we lose 20-something teachers, we won't have any money to bring those teachers back. If the towns don't approve an override, we'll lose more teachers. There's no way for us to go about this responsibly as educators and as people who support educators by depleting the number of people we can have in the system to support each other. So, I'm sorry, but I have no problems with anything else, but those 2 numbers seem very steep to me in today's economy.
Okay, seeing nothing else? No, yes.
Well, I just want to say, I think, I want to echo what Kara said, but also I want to say, like, we talk a lot about being penny wise and pound foolish, and I think that not giving the teachers the cost of living increases means that we might lose them to other districts. And I think that that's something that we need to consider as well, because education is people, programs are people. If we lose the educators that we have, we're losing the education we're giving our children. So I think that the cost of living increases, you know, I think are necessary to make sure that we have and maintain what I think are just a terrific fleet of educators and make sure that they stay here in the district.
I would agree with with Ryan, sorry, just in terms of we have a wonderful fleet, and teachers deserve cost of living increases, and even nationally, we don't fund teachers as well as they deserve. That's a true fact. And again, one of the reasons I asked to move the budget was to ensure that we voted something that could support what teachers deserve. But here we are talking about cutting 24 teachers and then saying, so is it only some teachers that deserve something and others that don't? The 24 that we're going to lose don't deserve recognition, don't deserve others. So I wanted to see where we could have that room to make sure that we could fund before this. And so.
Sorry.
Yes, Cindy.
So I'm not sure that those numbers should have been disclosed. And all of that was negotiated with all of this in mind. So I'm pretty sure that the other side of the table we wouldn't have come to an agreement unless it was possible. So you have to trust the administration on that as well. And some of these things were already agreed upon in good faith and signed.
Just point of clarification, was it agreed upon that we were losing 24 teachers?
We haven't discussed that yet. We haven't discussed that yet. That's the budget. Yes.
Why do you think it shouldn't have been included?
Shouldn't have?
Yeah, I don't understand that.
Well, because it's not public knowledge on our end right now.
Okay,
Okay.
then what?
Sense.
Okay,
It is
so
now.
why did it get?
But
We have to vote. It's a public meeting.
So it just became public just now?
Correct.
The vote should have been.
She would
public.
prefer that it wasn't.
Content should not have been released.
Okay.
Until after the
Until
vote.
after.
Until after the vote. Got it.
We're voting on Monday, so if you vote not to ratify the contract, all of that goes away, and we start from the beginning, and we'll probably end up in mediation with lawyers. So consider it heavily, and that probably shouldn't have been put out there, because now that compromises a lot.
All right. Move to the vote. Okay. All in favor of accepting the contract? Raise your hands, please. Okay, opposed? Okay, 3.
Abstain.
Any abstain? You are abstaining?
I'm abstaining. We don't have money to work with.
6, we have the 6 votes. It has been approved. Okay, we now have approval of meeting minutes. April 9th, 2025, approval of meeting minutes.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Raise your hands, please. Okay, and 2 abstentions? 2 abstentions. May 7th, 2025.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? May 7th? Okay. 2 abstentions. Okay, Superintendent,
Thank you.
you're up.
So conversation now regards the FY26 budget and potential movement of the assessment based upon town meeting and information that I've been relayed to from both communities. But before I begin the assessment conversation, I will have a recommendation for this committee. I'd like to share some thoughts about what's transpired over the past few months, and I think it's important that folks know the process. The district provided the school committee with a budget that maintained level services, although, as quoted, it wasn't educationally sound in February. The school committee approved a level service budget and sent an assessment to each community that would support a level service budget. Both towns communicated early to the school committee that they couldn't support the assessment as presented without the support of a Proposition 2.5 override. Members of the school committee, as well as central administration, were invited to attend meetings with both finance committees, one in Hanson and one in Whitman. I was also invited to sit at the table in Whitman when the budget and override was discussed, and I appreciated that invitation. Town meetings were held in Whitman and Hanson on May 3rd. Article 2 in Whitman passed on the contingency of an approved override. Article 4 passed in Hanson. However, the budget for the district that was placed in Article 4 was not the assessment figure that was voted on by the school committee. Article 5 passed in Hanson, and that article had the correct assessment number, and that article was contingent upon an override. Central administration and the school committee members were invited to attend 3 informational meetings in Whitman and 3 informational meetings in Hanson to review the Proposition 2.5 override. Both sides were well attended by taxpayers. On May 17th, a vote was held, and the taxpayers of Whitman and Hanson each voted not to support a Proposition 2.5 override. The town of Whitman scheduled a town meeting on June 11th to see if the town will approve a new Article 2 and currently are waiting on the school committee to determine whether to send the same assessment as voted in March or reassess. The town of Hanson has not set a town meeting to date because they have an approved budget, Article 4. However, the school committee must accept that number in Article 4, as this was not the assessment provided to the town. The select board in Hanson is meeting on June 10th, and they're waiting to hear what decisions are made here tonight. In your packet, you will see an email from Ms. Hill stating that we legally have an approved budget citing DESI regulations. You can review that at some point tonight. On July 1st, if the district does not have an approved budget from both communities, the DESI commissioner will place Whitman-Hanson on a 1/12 budget until a budget is approved by both towns. A 1/12 budget will be a cut of $3.375 million to the proposed operating budget, and it reverts back to our FY25 numbers. Calculating unemployment as of 7/1, the real cut is $3.7 million, and I will have to administer at least 48 reduction in force notifications. Also in your packet is a document draft that outlines the budget numbers presented to me by both towns and a 1/12 number. This is the document. The Whitman scenario increases the district budget by 2.596%. That's an overall budget increase, and assesses Whitman at 4.086% and Hanson at 5.34%, or 344%. The Hanson scenario increases the district budget by 1.525% and assesses Hanson at 3.594% and Whitman at 1.933%. In your packet, I have potential cuts that I put together on the contingency budget that was determined in the joint meeting of the Whitman Finance Committee and Whitman Select Board, and I had shared those potential cuts of $2 million with the school committee. Tonight, I believe we need to listen to what the taxpayers say and lower the assessment. I also believe we do not have an approved budget prior to, and I also believe that if we do not have, we need an approved budget by 7/1. To not have a budget only risks 48 staff members, and I cannot in good faith hire for critical vacancies. I also advise that if the committee believes that something illegal or inappropriate was done by either town in this process, we consult our attorney and take action in the future. Any litigation now will stall our process and place us in a 1/12 for an inordinate amount of time and hurt our students. My recommendation for the committee tonight is to lower the assessment by $1,664,738.35 for Whitman to an assessment of $19,917,568.65, or the 4.086 percentage, and lowering Hanson's amount by $677,333.92 to $15,775,031.08 for 5.344. The district budget will then be $64,564,205.55, or a 2.596% increase over last year, and we will need to reduce by $1,742,070.64. And in your packet, I also included, it's 23 positions that are cut district-wide. I did not name names. I put buildings to those folks, totaling a reduction in force of 3 people. We've done a nice job of trying to do what's best to eliminate unemployment. Transfers to open positions through resignations, retirements, non-renewals, or positions currently filled by long-term substitutes will be issued to 13 staff members. And positions that are still open for the school year 25-26 that I need to fill are an ASD program teacher, a PACES program teacher, multiple inclusion teachers, a school psychologist for a year, an occupational therapy, a speech therapy, chemistry, math, and English. So I still have vacancies. So that's my recommendation for the committee tonight. I'm sure we can go around with different figures, but I believe we put forth a budget to both communities. We asked the communities to vote on that budget, and they told us where they were at. I don't believe that we have a sound educational budget, This reduction takes away a lot of what my administration has done since 2018, but it's the number that I think we need to work with tonight. I fear a 1/12 in the month of July, in the month of August, and school will be drastically different in September if we are still on a 1/12. The process from this committee is to send an assessment to the communities if we feel they don't have an approved budget, so that they can try to approve a budget by July 1. And if not, this committee needs to come back, reassess again, and it would lead to a super town meeting if both communities don't approve the budget that the school committee assesses today.
Yes, Rosemary. Thank you. I have reviewed, we have a budget, so there would need to be a 1/12 budget. The towns disregarded the district and school finance document that was sent in March 2025 after trying to attempt something similar to this last year. They cannot make contingencies to any portion. I reviewed multiple towns that challenged this. Each town, the school lost, schools that challenged it, 5 different towns, the schools were correct. You can only put what we put on that budget. You cannot change it in any capacity. You cannot make it contingent with an override. You cannot do anything. Only how, not only the number, but what we sent over and what we voted. What we voted was a bill. They could not make it contingencies if, from what I'm reading, if they do make that a contingency, any extra language falls apart, it's an exception. We have a budget. To move forward with this vote means that we had an opportunity to save 24 teachers, or the teachers. We had an opportunity, and we said, after everyone just said, teachers matter. Everybody said that here. They matter, their cost of living, well, their job matters too. And I'm telling you, I've been in this school, educated in this school when it wasn't funded well, when it was okay to be at the bottom 1%. We're going back down to what we legally have to, just barely what we legally have to do. We're heading in that direction again. The towns were obligated to raise and appropriate and put in the correct number, to raise and appropriate the amount to educate their children, and they did not. This is a financial failure on the town's level, and to keep accepting it is unconscionable. You cannot do this and say that you're for teachers or for education. I ask you to pass over this. I can read legal precedents. Somebody can introduce somebody who is not an attorney, I think gave advice. It has no legal precedents. I am going to be emailing Commissioner Riley and asking why people are giving it advice. He's not advice, right? Well, not the Commissioner Riley, excuse me, Sullivan, Mr. Sullivan, and ask why, ask this to higher ups and continue asking. But for now, to be tricked into passing a budget or moving forward without double checking, without saying that we do have a budget or not is wrong. Now, for those who have concerns about the town's financial situation, there are things we can do. Say we did get money back, more money than we thought here and there. We can handle capital expenses within the budget. We can choose to do those things. So there are options. As far as 1/12 budget goes, you can keep staff and delay other expenses. There are ways to do this. It would be a choice on the administration. And I want to also note that nobody on this committee voted for anybody to negotiate with the towns anything different or give a different number than what the school committee did. They went rogue. This was a rogue behavior. We said our teachers mattered. We said our kids matter. We said we can't lose any more students to charters, to other things. It has a financial impact for the town. This isn't even sound financial advice long term. I don't know why we would even think to move in this direction.
Hillary? So I guess this is separate from the budget conversation, because I do think most of our conversation tonight should be about Jeff's proposal and what we should do and what we should do with what we have. But I called Michelle Griffith, or I reached out to people from DESE, the regional governance, about the budget and the process, because I did have questions about how the school committee's assessment was put on both town warrants, and what that meant and what the regulations are. And Michelle Griffin from DESE Governance, we emailed back and forth, and then she said, can I just call you because it would be easier? So we spoke at 4 o'clock on Monday afternoon, in between my Ubering my children. And she actually called me again today because I had some follow-up questions. And when I spoke with her today, she pointed me to the DLR, DLS website about Prop 2.5 overrides. And she is not an attorney, and she said, the questions I had for her were more about the process and how our budget was put on the warrants. When I spoke with her today, my question was more, can a school budget be contingent on an override? So she sent me the document, and I can share it with the full committee, or you can find it. It's the DLS, Department of Local Services, Department of Revenue, Proposition 2.5 ballot questions, because DESE does not govern Prop 2.5 overrides, the DLR and DLS does. So on this document, did I just lose it? I just lost it, excuse me. Sorry, I was just going up to the top and now I lost it. Page 10. It's titled Contingent Appropriations. And under number 2, appropriation types, the second paragraph reads, contingent appropriations may be used for appropriations for operating budgets, capital projects, and regional school assessments. Towns often approve, and it talks about different things. It is here. Ms. Griffin from DESE pointed me to this because she said DESE does not have legal or regulations against, or as they apply to Prop 2.5 overrides. That's DLR and DLS. So this is what it says. This was given to me today as I was on my way driving into the meeting. And so I think that right now, Whitman doesn't have an appropriated figure for the schools, right?
Point of order.
I'm not done talking. I'm not done talking.
Go ahead.
Whitman does not have an appropriated number. And so if we go on a 1/12 budget, Whitman technically does not have money appropriated to pay that bill. So if we leave tonight and don't have a number for Whitman to present at their town meeting on Wednesday next week, we are in way worse shape than we are right now. And that is a major, major concern that I have, because going on a 1/12 budget is a massive concern, but going on a 1/12 budget when we have one town that doesn't have any money appropriated to pay for that, Hanson at least has money to pay for a 1/12 budget. Whitman does not. And so I'm not sure, I don't know how that would work. It wouldn't. And so I think that instead of muddying the waters with this, we talk about the actual budget and what we need to do to make it work.
Correction, just a point of order here. The law states that if you are going to do a contingency budget, we have to vote that contingency. We voted no contingency. In the language of the document, it states, it's not only the number, it's the process in which we vote. And it's very clear here. Requires that in acting in appropriations, how you appropriate it, how you apply it. For educational costs, a city town appropriation shall vote on the total amount and the appropriations requested, shall not allocate appropriations among accounts or place any restrictions on such appropriations. An override is a restriction. We could have approved that. We could have come in here and approved that number. We didn't. Therefore, What was voted was the number we gave. Nothing else can be voted. It was voted. Now, I would like to ask the attorneys a direct question, not do we or could we have a budget. The 5 towns that had this same question with overrides, 5, Milford, Mass, Newton to Boston, all of those, all had budgets. All had budgets. This is a fancy way of trying to do what they did last year, and Desi told them they could not, and they did it again. Ultimately, we are a separate entity so that we can protect education. It is a complex budget. You can't just say, oh, we paid this much next year, because wealth indexes can change and the town could jump up, which did happen. It's up, the town's requirements are an additional $1 million, not based on what we're using, but based on just the formula from DESE. And understanding those things and not just kneeling to political pressure is important, because we have to provide, by law, an education that is competitive to other towns. I feel like we're saying 2 different things. Teachers are important, and only some teachers are important.
So Rosemary, what you're saying is that when we did vote to appropriate the budget, we should not have made that vote because there was contingency?
No, we never made, here we made a vote.
But there was a contingency. Like,
Yeah,
we can't erase that. We can't go back and say, well, let's just pretend there wasn't one.
Stop.
I'm talking.
I'm trying to explain this, because we have no control over what happens at the town. We sent a bill, and they told the public that
You're not getting my point.
The bill.
My vote was based on that contingency. I may have voted different if you had taken that contingency out. So now you can't just say we should go forward with that, and let's just forget we ever had a contingency. We did. So I would have not voted the way I did if the contingency wasn't part of that vote. So I don't know what you want to do. We cannot go back in time and change it.
What I'm saying is, we have a budget. We don't have to budge, but we can return money, essentially.
Yeah, we can send it back to them.
Yeah, but
they don't want it.
You know, what I'm saying is we could.
It's easy to spend other people's money, isn't it?
No, I'm not saying that. I think.
Let's go ahead.
Are you sure?
I'm done.
Okay, good. What I'm saying is, the towns should responsibly raise and appropriate and put in the appropriate number. Our superintendent gave them an amount. They chose a different one. They chose it in dark rooms with no recordings, with no accountability to the public. They chose it with no knowledge of children's needs. They chose it without understanding of what teacher we need in what classroom. They ignored all of the needs of, all of the work that was put into the budget and just decided on something. The reason our budget is separate is so that you cannot do such a thing. They then applied a convoluted language that they knew they were not allowed to by statute of DESE from just March 2025, from attempting to do something similar last year. I'm saying we move forward and then we see what we need and we pay for capital and offset costs that way. But we care for these kids and make sure they have what they need. And then we ensure that budgeting moves forward in a more responsible way. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Do not make a move on this.
Kara?
I just want to maybe take issue a little bit with I think it was probably a throwaway comment about anyone kneeling to political pressure here. I can speak for myself. I am certainly not one to do so. I know that Hillary stood up at Hanson Town Meeting and made this case, and the town lawyer from Hanson clarified, and everything that I have read in some extensive research subsequently was that there can be a contingency budget proposed if an override fails. That doesn't mean that automatically becomes our budget. So, for example, in Hanson, the contingency budget for the line item for Whitman-Hanson regional assessment, I want to be clear that that's Whitman-Hanson and not our vocational programs, because we don't have the option to cut those.
Well, we do, but we don't.
We do, well, we do not have that, what, political leverage, I guess, like we don't have the numbers in terms of communities, yes. $940,000 reduction from the Whitman-Hanson operating assessment. I, like you, Rosemary, take major issue with that number. That is a huge number when you then calculate it in conjunction with Whitman, and it would, in my mind, decimate our school system. At the same time, my understanding is if the override fails and then it defaults to the contingency budget, then that doesn't mean that that becomes our budget. It means that our budget was rejected. It comes back to us to have the conversation we're having tonight to decide if we double down on the assessment we proposed, or we take their number, or we settle somewhere in between. So I agree. I think that there's, arguments maybe to be had on either side. I agree the $940,000 feels arbitrary to me, and I would, as I have stated in multiple meetings, love for budget conversations with town departments and the school committee to happen early and often in the process. I think there have been some gaps there. However, I think that our charge right now is to revisit and evaluate where we go from here. So I don't feel like our time is well served right now arguing this particular argument. I think it's to look at the budget that our superintendent is now proposing, think about what that impact would be for our students and our staff and our communities, and make the most educationally sound proposal that we can, given the information we have right now.
I would like, you've had three bites of the apple. Let's have other people, please. Okay, so looking at what Jeff proposed here, and I really don't like the thing that said that I'm automatically voting to cut things down. I've never said that. I haven't voted for that way. Nope. Right? Jeff, have I said that to you? No. So looking at, and I know this is confusing to a lot of people, because we're losing, with what the suggestion is, 23 positions. There's not 23 teachers, because some of the teachers can be moved to other positions of, as Jeff said, retirements, people leaving the district, long-term subs, that positions are done. So it would be a reduction force right now of 3. However, the positions that are being cut were ones that we added after COVID or during COVID to help our students achieve. And it really is, to me, disheartening to see that we're losing our interventionists and the teachers, some of the position teachers. I know that there's not a lot with the elementaries because we're trying to keep those numbers the same. But the interventionist paras, the interventionists, the library aides at Whitman Middle and Hanson Middle, they haven't had a librarian there for years, and all we have has been the aides who have helped out. I'm sorry, but that breaks my heart, because we have seen the improvement. We have seen what has been presented by our 2 assistant superintendents, and the numbers have gone up for all our students because of the interventions we have with WIN and all those. And that's my concern too, that the WIN program, that is what I need, that's what WIN stands for those who don't know, has been pretty successful. And I don't know what these cuts would mean to that program, which to me would mean, it's not going to work. So I understand, but it's very hard for me to see the improvement of our students and then not keep it that way.
It also includes cuts to curriculum.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
athletics.
I didn't even say that.
Right.
Yeah, curriculum cuts, which we didn't have curriculum for the elementaries for some of their middle school
For 20 years.
for 20 years. So the teachers were required and did what they were required by the state requirements. But they didn't have any distinct curriculum to do it with, so that everybody was on the same page. Everybody had the same requirements, but everybody does things differently. So we finally were able to purchase a curriculum for all our needs, finally, and that we now just need to pay renewals. So what a wonderful thing that we are able to do. And now we might have to revert to state, quote, free curriculum that has a cost to it for training. So is it really free? No. It's still going to cost us money. I did see one of the comments that, oh, I see that the budget from the state, the schools are getting more money. But as we have looked at time and time again, when we see an increase here, we see a decrease over here. Charter school reimbursement goes down. We might get a little extra here. But when it all breaks down, it doesn't equal that much more money. And that's the problem here, folks. It's not that we're asking for more. The problem is the state is paying us less. And so that means it's not that we've increased this huge amount. The state has gone down this huge amount. You know, it's not the school's fault. It's really the state's fault. And we work, we go. I've been to several meetings. I went out to the state with our two assistant superintendents to a state meeting to hear what they had to say about fixing Chapter 70 money, fixing 2.5. And that's the type of thing that needs to be done. But this budget reduction stuff, that to try to save teachers, because that's what it's trying to do, is save teachers, but taking away the instructors who added to the teachers, who added to the students' instruction every day. And that really bothers me. And that's really what upsets me. You know, oh, great, okay, it's only 3 teachers, but it's also curriculum, it's also this, and it's 23 positions. I have been in this school district between starting out my teaching career in 73 in Hanson to 77, and then came back as a sub in 84 until I got a full-time position again in 95, and I taught until 2019. I have seen so many changes and so many discrepancies going through the years. But when you see improvement going and money that was granted, given to us, ESSER funds and things like that, but the district made great moves with that money. They did great things with that money. It all went to the students to help them achieve. So I guess that's my little soapbox. Anyway, Steph.
So just out of curiosity, the 2 library aides at the Whitman Middle School and Whitman-Hanson, or Hanson Middle School, are those the only library aides? Does that mean that those libraries will not be open to the students?
That's correct.
And then the other question I have, the elementary interventionist paras and the middle school interventionists and the high school, or Hanson Middle School, Whitman Middle School special education, how much of that's going to push kids to go out of district for the needs that they have because they're not being met here?
Special education needs will be met here. I can't say how many kids would be moved out. We're not really moving special ed. This person's going into a different role. She was in a support role at both middle schools. Not a direct, providing direct services through an IEP that can be moved into another special educator.
I just want to be the not, I want to be not penny wise, pound foolish. I want to make sure that we're not cutting,
remember,
something that's going
to again, and you bring up a really valid point right now, because without a budget, when I say the programs that I still need to fill, I won't be able to fill, which is my ASD program and another special ed program, without a teacher, that might move people out and have a reassessment of their IEP. So again, having something by July 1 so I can actually post and hire. I have a chemistry position open at the high school. If I can't hire a chemistry teacher, I think there's 4 applicants now, all from out of state. So I'm trying to actively recruit, but I won't be able to hire someone without a budget. So those are pieces here within this. But direct service to special education will still sustain. I'm not as concerned about that. It's I want to call it that student in the middle right now. And that's where our intervention program really was working with, saying out of this committee, we have some high achievers, we have some low achievers, and kids in the middle. The low achievers are going to get some support. The high achievers need less. And that student in the middle to get them over that little bit of a hump, because they don't have direct contact with that middle school, and middle school's crucial, is going to go away. These were all pieces that should have been in place as of 2016. So I know we relied on some ESSER money to do some things. And again, that's a catch-22 from the comment from the Fed in 2020, when they said, spend all this money, but it's a one-time fund, but you can't spend it here and you can't spend it here. And if I were to come back to this committee or these 2 communities and said, we turned back $2.5 million to the towns, I wouldn't be sitting here right now, and they would have said, you're crazy. So we did it the best way we could and to try to sustain it. We knew in 2022 that fiscal 26 was going to be our very most difficult year, and it has proven to be exact on what we projected. These are positions again, and then again, as the superintendent, the initial, when we were looking at that contingency, and this is a contingency of $2 million. If the committee goes with the recommendation that I have, that contingency is less, and some of these folks might be able to come back. But if I just threw it up against the wall and I said I need to cut $2 million, we looked at non-instructional or instructional areas, non-people, I was looking at, $2.7 million in cuts due to unemployment. I've been able to reduce that to a number that's feasible. But if we go with a different number, say the budget number that Hanson's provided, I don't have an answer for that. That's $400,000 more than that, and that's going to go deeper because I also have to cover those areas of unemployment. That's the catch-22 here. And as soon as I do a reduction in force and we go past June 30th, every person who receives that letter does not have a contract and is eligible for unemployment at 40% of their current salary until we have a budget and I can do a recall notice. And the reason I know this is because we did it in 2020 and we didn't have a budget until July 29th, and I did my recall notice the next day. But I had a number of staff members that went for unemployment over that time, and we lost money over that. It wasn't $1 million, but it was 60 some odd thousand dollars that now we're in a deficiency for that next year. I hope I answered your question. Did you still? No, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I had one more little thing. So according to a quick search, Whitman-Hanson Regional School District has 476 people employed approximately?
Yeah.
Okay. So 1/20th of that would be the number of positions that are being cut. And I just want to reinforce to the public that these interventionist positions that are going to be potentially cut is going to mean more work for the teachers who are going to still be here. And I just
100%.
don't think that's fair to the teachers, quite frankly, and I really don't think it's fair.
Hillary, and then Kara, and then Rosemary.
So we keep hearing from the towns 5%, right? They can handle a 5% increase. I am not a math person, but I taught myself how to do math today, and I looked at Hanson's local minimum contribution from FY25. That minimum local contribution, which is what the state tells you minimally you must pay to educate your students, was just over $11 million. FY26, that minimum local contribution it's 12.1. That is a 7.5% increase on the minimum local contribution. That's not us. That's not us adding programs. That is not us adding staff. We are not adding AP Chinese. The state is telling the town of Hanson, you need to increase what you minimally pay by 7.5%. That is over the 5% that Hanson tells us consistently, right, that they can afford. It is very troubling to me that that is the state telling you this, right? And I know that the Hanson Select Board has had people come in and say, but we're not the wealthier town, it's not this. We can't fix that. The numbers are the numbers. I don't know, because I only did Hanson's, I don't know what Whitman's increase was. FY25, the number was 13.2. FY26, the number is 14.2. It's about $1 million. I don't know what percentage that is, because again, I'd have to Google how to figure this out. That is a really big number. We are getting so wrapped up, and I don't mean we, because as I said a few meetings ago, I stay off of social media. I think it's detrimental to so many things. I think as someone on an elected board who ran for a position that no one wants, my goal and my hope in this position is to have solutions-based conversations and to solve problems, not create them. That's not always popular. It's important to try to do the right thing. Jeff, I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm going to be honest with everybody in the committee. We need to find somewhere else to cut $400,000. We cannot cut curriculum that we literally just got. I think one of my first votes in 2020 was to purchase curriculum. So we don't have curriculum for the teachers, and let me be clear, and I think Kara would agree with me, curriculum doesn't make someone a great teacher, but what it does make is it makes it so that all of the kids in third grade are sort of on the same track, and we're pacing at the same time. And when we have our PLCs, we make sure, oh, my kid struggled with this unit, oh, mine did too, okay, what are we gonna do? Oh, but we don't have interventionists now where they can pull them out for a win block to fix those things. Oh, I have 28 kids in my class now, so it's really hard for me to take the time, the 45 minutes I have during the day, to look at their data and to figure out who needs what. I think looking at this, I guess one of my other questions is like some of the teachers like Duval, Conley, Indian Head, Hanson Middle, High School, Whitman Middle, could those be enrollment-driven decisions too? Like, are there places where there are, one weird grade that has very small classes, right? And that might not be as big of a hit. I think, and we've heard it a couple times tonight, I think one of the things that I've been saying more to myself, because I talk to myself a lot, if kids still get on the bus and go to school and come home with their Chromebooks and are happy and, are learning something, no one's going to take notice that we cut $2 million from our budget. No one's going to pay attention, and we are all going to be back here again next year, okay? I think the schools are an easy scapegoat for the town's financial problems. I think in any district, and we've talked about this at length, but in any town, your school budget is your biggest budget. It is a people-driven business. You need people to teach, and you need people there. I think that we need, as the committee, I think that there are things here, me personally, I don't agree with. I think there's a letter in our packet from Bob Rogers about increasing user fees. I think looking at fees for other things. We had overrides in towns, and people overwhelmingly said they didn't want the override, but unfortunately, there are going to be taxes on a specific group of people, whether they recognize it or not, and it's going to be parents and kids. And if we do these things, I think that we need to be cognizant of, there needs to be Mr. Kane talks about sacrifice. If none of these things really affect the kids going to school every day, then what are their parents sacrificing? What's the sacrifice being made if, they're back and, look, they get to go on this field trip? If there's no effect and no sacrifice, then we're going to be back here again next year. And we are here every year. Every year we're here, right? So I would like to see or have a conversation about, and I don't know if it's possible, like if there's recommendations, but I have a really hard time saying, yes, cut curriculum. I think that we need to find $400,000 somewhere else. Cohasset just brought back, they used to have free full-day kindergarten. They just brought back tuition for kindergarten. Based on this year's numbers, we have 246 kindergartners. If we charged $3,000, if going off this year's numbers, that would give us about $700,000, which is curriculum. I mean, there are things that have to be done, and they're hard conversations, but we're being put in this position to make these hard conversations. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe the will of the committee is something else, but those are things I feel strongly about.
Carrie, you are next.
I have a couple of thoughts. First of all, thank you, Jeff, for this. Obviously, these are very difficult decisions that none of us wanted to have to consider and do not take lightly. I appreciate you trying to minimize the reduction in force. However, as has been said, there's the 23 positions is 23 less student-facing roles. A couple of things. The first, I was thinking as Stephanie was talking about her question about special ed services, and I was thinking of it actually from a general ed standpoint when we talk about whether it's the WIN block or more formally the Massachusetts Tiered System of Support, which is a general ed process by which students who are identified at risk are put into intervention groups with the hope that with specific intervention for what they need, they will make the necessary gains, close the gaps, so that they will be performing on or close to grade level. The alternative to that is that if they are not making progress, that they are then potentially channeled into the special ed process. The special ed process, special education, as we have talked about, is significantly more expensive than providing general ed interventions. So certainly it's not going to be every child that doesn't get a certain WIN is not going to end up in special ed. It's not that students, I think we're obviously, we want to make sure that special ed services are appropriate for those students with identified disabilities and needs. However, again, this goes to kind of short-term gain for a long-term cost. Cutting these interventionist positions along with curriculum that could support some of that intervention likely will ultimately end up with a population of students that end up in the special ed pipeline that we may have been able to remediate in general ed. And that will come at a significantly higher cost. Again, that doesn't kind of change our current budget situation, but I think it's important to reinforce. I am similarly minded with Hillary around the extent to which these reductions or these cuts can be we can minimize student-facing situations. I think it's important. And I know that there are potentially some conversations around fees. Again, not something I wanted to be here discussing, but I think it is an important part of the conversation. I think we have other, when we talk about high school athletics, I know that at one point there was a conversation about clubs. I know that we have potentially there's a busing conversation that we could pursue. And again, I hate that, Hillary, what you're saying, but yeah, full day kindergarten, it might be a conversation that we need to have. And I hate that because we fought so hard and so long for that. My last major comment right now, and again, it's coming from a probably personal place as well as a place on this committee. The same students who did not all have the opportunity for full day kindergarten and whose parents, if they chose to and were able financially to, paid for it, are the same students who in 2015 and 2016 had elementary class sizes of up to 28, who had libraries closed at the elementary and middle school, who had music services that were cut or reduced, who did not have an opportunity for middle school foreign language, and who now potentially are looking at, in their high school years, cuts in or charges for, or some combination of both, their high school athletics, some of the curriculum. So I do worry, I do feel like there has been an undue burden on that particular cohort of kids that are moving through our system that have been hit time and time and time again by our town's inability to fund what the committee has argued is an educationally sound budget. So that's my 2 cents.
I'm going to ask a question and then continue on. I just want to clarify. You've stated that when money from the state entered into our educational system, the children did better, correct? When we started getting the interventionists and we invested in those children, the children did better, testing came out better?
Yes.
Okay.
The pieces we've put in place that we could use federal funds from improved our students.
Thank you. I want to state that this is proof that we are underfunding education and we are not meeting the ability of these children. This is what an educationally unsound budget looks like. We are supposed to be focusing on these kids. I've heard a lot about everybody but these kids, and we have sound evidence that we are harming them when we do not fund education. We have sound evidence that money matters when it comes to education. Now, I've introduced something that is sound. We should not be moving forward with maybe we don't have a budget. We have a budget. According to most legal statutes, it says we can't change it. The way it was sent over is the way it's approved and the way it comes back. I would ask that before we move forward to do anything, that we ask the attorneys if it is absolute that we do not have a budget, because leaving it in the hands of the towns, we've seen what happens. They don't fund to the needs of the children. An interesting perspective was just brought up about how financing works for schools, why we've gone up millions of dollars. It's because each town has had, the formula includes income and the EQV, overall value. That means these towns have more income and value, so the sliding scale of what they have to pay is more. So it's not that they can't afford something, it's that they're choosing not to. And if that choice lands on the lap of a child's future and their ability to access education, and we're not educating them to their ability, then we're failing them. So I would ask again to not take a vote on this and not move to until we have an absolute that we do not have a budget. At that point, we can start to say how much we might negotiate back and forth, but not to leave it to anything else, to actually soundly make these decisions that are child-focused and educationally focused. Please. Thank you.
So I have a couple of questions, and and then I want to share my thoughts. So I'm looking at this budget reduction, the positions cut, reduction of force of 20, meaning that out of those 23, 20 of them could be then reassigned, relocated somewhere else, have been, will be, whatever. Great. Okay. I told this story at Whitman's town meeting, and, I'll say it again here to a broader group of people. When my son was in kindergarten, he came home from school one day very upset, and we got a note from his teacher that we had to have a meeting with his teacher about something that happened in class. It turned out that he had been working on a piece of math scratch paper, made a mistake on it, went to scratch out his answer, and tore the paper. He was very upset. He threw that piece of paper away, went up to his kindergarten teacher, who I love, by the way. She was a great teacher. I hold no ill will towards her. This is not her problem. But he went up to his kindergarten teacher and said, I tore my piece of paper. I need another piece of paper, another piece of gray math paper. And was told that the budget was so tight, they could not afford to give my 6-year-old son another piece of gray graph paper with which to complete his assignment. He then had to walk over to the trash barrel, pull it out of the trash barrel, smooth it out, and sit down embarrassed. And then we had to go have a meeting with the teacher. We had to talk to the teacher about that. This is during that 2015, 2016 period you're talking about. We're in the bottom 1% of funding our schools. And the progress that we have made in that 10 years is enormous. That same kindergarten student now is a freshman here at the high school and has a definitive, I want to do this career path because of programs that didn't exist in the way that they exist now at this high school. He has found mentors in teachers that have completely changed the trajectory of his life. In his own words, this is not me editorializing as a parent. This is my 15-year-old son has told me this. Whose 15-year-old son says stuff like that? I love you, bud. I understand that we have been told, not just we as a school committee, but the towns, the police, the fire, the town administrations have been told by the people of the two towns, we don't agree with the money, the way the money is being spent. And there's a large group of people here, here tonight to talk about this. This is my, 10th or 11th meeting since being appointed in October. The entire total attendance of all of those meetings combined would not fill the front row of seats that is filled tonight. So a lot of people have a lot of opinions about how things are being done and how money should be spent and are taking their cues from, in my opinion, some bad faith actors out there who are not looking at it from the best interests of the towns, from the townspeople, from the students, whatever. But that's where they are. I would encourage, get involved, get here, be part of these meetings, take a look at this budget book, which was handed out months ago and has been available on the district website ever since. And those people, I don't think, have ever looked at it once. And then to touch on a point that I think it was Hillary made earlier, a lot of the funding sources that we have outside of the assessments to the towns come in from federal grant, state funding, this, that, and the other, that are trending downward. They're not trending in the way of costs. And we have representatives at the state level that sometimes are very supportive of those things and oftentimes are not. And that's coming out of your pockets, Their refusal to advocate on behalf of our kids, on behalf of our towns, on behalf of our tax-paying citizens, their refusal to advocate on their behalf is costing you money. It's costing me money. It's costing us all money. All right? And there's a lot of anger and vitriol and a lot of finger-pointing and name-calling, some really nasty name-calling out there, which is terrible. Being directed at some of the people on this board, some of the people in this audience who think that we should be spending that money to educate our children, to support our local police and fire and all that. They have a lot of time and energy to fight on Facebook. Do they have that same amount of time to throw out a letter to your state representative, to your state senator, and have that argument with them too? You want to argue with us? Fine. Again, I think with the exception of one of the school committee positions this year, all were unopposed. So we showed up. Nobody else showed up for those positions. So there's a lot of frustration and anger out there, and I get that. Money is tight. Money is tight everywhere. But I want to see my money spent in the areas where it's going to do the most good for our community. And I think that the schools and the environment that they create and the teachers that they have. I know I voted against the teacher contract earlier, so this seems a little bit in contrast, but I wish I could give that contract to everybody and then some. You all deserve it. Teachers are amazing. The teachers in this town are amazing. You all deserve that and more. I'm looking at a pocketbook that is slightly empty, and that's kind of where I'm coming from on that piece of it. I understand the need or the thought process behind the cuts on this piece of paper. I hate it. I hate every single one of them. Curriculum, we just got it, man. We can't give that back. High school athletics, we haven't got to this letter from Bob Rogers yet, but we're potentially cutting money out of that, and then they're going to self-fundraise off of themselves. But who knows if those kids can even afford to play those sports? He even acknowledged that in here, that this assumes the number of people who played in those sports in years past that probably aren't going to be able to do it next year because of these fees that go up. And that's awful. I hate that for everyone in this town. I hate this for everybody in Hanson. I hate this for the district-wide. And I don't want to give a dime back, but I also understand that there's probably some level of compromise that is going to happen at some point.
Okay, go ahead.
Is it possible for us to pull curriculum back off of those proposals, and then vote on that? Because I agree that curriculum is the one thing that, it's a net 3 loss, 3 bodies.
So I need a number to work off of.
So pull $400,000 off of that number.
But that would change your assessment. You know what I mean?
And then can we vote on that?
So you can do whatever you so choose. What I have, the charge that I have is trying to reallocate cuts, and if they're people cuts, it's a person plus 40%. So what we have worked on really since the tone of, and I felt the tone that the overrides might not be successful, that would be detrimental in my duty to not have plans. So what you have in front of you
Your number gives the town exactly what they're looking for?
So this number of cuts here is actually higher than what I'm proposing as far as a cut. I'm proposing a $1.7 million cut, which is in blue on your sheet here.
Yeah.
That would have to be appropriated in both.
Okay, so we're still below what the town is saying they can afford.
For what I'm trying to do is make sure that we put teachers in front of kids.
Sure.
And
perfect world.
If it comes down to it, you can direct me to say you'd like to cut more athletics, you'd like to cut into the fee structure of full-day K. However, I did look at that, and then we would lose Chapter 70 money for each of those students, which puts us in a detriment.
There is no real good solution here, no matter what.
So I had a full head of hair in April, right? I'm just saying.
Where do we go? If there is no good solution.
This is a problem. Again, I think everything that you folks, and I think you're committed, and this is your volunteers committed to our kids. My job is to these people out here and the kids that we have, and I don't ever have the revenue.
Like, I know that I was elected by citizens, and not a single student voted for me. I don't believe.
Right.
So I'm here representing the citizens, and they did not want to pay for an override, which means they don't want to pay for our percentage of this budget. So, in good faith, I want to give them what they want, but I also do not want to do that at the detriment of the students. So where do we go?
And therein lies at least 3. You can also pick a number and say, this is what we want.
I like that idea, somewhere in the middle.
And it goes back to the towns. Go ahead, Ron.
Because I think when you first were speaking with the numbers, you're going pretty fast.
Yep.
So obviously the number that you gave, the Whitman number and the Hanson number do not, like in other words, they're here, do not reconcile.
No.
So we are going to be making one of those towns unhappy one way or the other.
Correct.
So
you could make both.
We could make them both unhappy, right? Yeah. But I guess the point is that the number you came up with was, how do you arrive at that number?
So in here on your sheet, the only number that we have as fixed as us is the 1/12. The town of Whitman supplied me with the blue.
Right.
The town of Hanson, that was on their warrant article.
But they haven't given a new.
That's all I have. Neither town has given me anything else except for Whitman said, here's a number for you that balances our budget. In Hanson, this is the approved one. The school committee can give me any number which you so choose, and Stephen has his computer out, he'll play around with the assessment numbers if you so choose.
So I guess the question is, which of those numbers did you use?
I used the Whitman number because it has out of a no-win situation, it's the least impact.
Okay,
At
that was my
1.7.
question, thank you.
Correct.
Hillary?
So looking at the initial proposed operating assessments to Hanson and Whitman, for Hanson, it was a 9.87% increase, and for Whitman, it was a 9.65% increase. As I said earlier, Hanson's minimum local contribution for FY26 has increased 7.5%. So our additional assessment is 2.something%, 2.5%-ish, I guess. Probably bad math. I'm probably wrong. Don't take my math for it. And then Whitman's minimum local contribution increased 7.1% to FY26. This is not a proposal that is going to make anybody happy, but I don't understand how we as a school committee can propose a budget increase that is less than what the state is telling the towns they minimally need to pay. I don't know if this is feasible to do tonight. I would hope it is, but I think that 7% number, and I don't know how it works, but if I'm looking at the figures from the state is saying you must minimally pay this much percentage more from what you paid last year, then I think that those are numbers that we should go with. I think that that's fair. I think that that is not us, the school, it is going to turn around and be us, the school committee, and people will come at me with pitchforks and torches, and that's fine.
That's not new.
But it's so important that we have the facts out there, and these are the facts. These are the numbers from the state. I don't know if they will change once the governor's budget comes out. Is that something that changes with that?
It can change. It can change.
It can change,
Yeah.
okay, and it can go higher or lower.
Not the percentage from the Department of Revenue, because those numbers are set.
No, the minimum local contributions.
No, that's a Department of Revenue, that's part
So
of.
that stays.
That's part of
So
the
that's not
aggregate.
going to change, because
That's
that's
not
on.
going to change.
Great, so I just don't understand what we're doing by saying, we're basically saying Whitman is going to pay 3% less than what the state is telling them they minimally should pay. Am I making sense?
Yep.
I don't know. I'm looking at the time. I feel like we're going around in circles. I think no one is happy with these cuts, but I think that at the end of the day, Whitman has a town meeting next week, and we need to get a number that we can send back to the towns so that Whitman can have their town meeting and so that Hanson can schedule a town meeting, and then we can go from there.
Just, Chair?
Yes.
When we're talking about cuts to services, I think it's important to note a few things. And Hillary highlighted that Hanson's minimal local contribution is going up. That's because Hanson's wealth index is going up rapidly. And therefore, the ability to afford full-day K and afford those extra services is increasing. So please bear with me. Sometimes I get cut off, but I have a speech problem, so please give me time. Thank you. It's part of my dyslexia. If we make these cuts, they will hit differently in each town. We will have, and they have in the past, when we had people paying for full-day K. In Whitman, we had the largest amount of children outside of full-day early education in Massachusetts because parents couldn't afford it. So we're going to have this same outcome again with children in their first footing of education unequally. I think that's very dangerous. We're only going to have parents who can afford the sports, not the people who actually have the skill. the same outcome will come. We often saw more kids on the tracks team when we were paying more from Hanson. We often saw that. We will see the same outcomes. This will not be an equal opportunity education system. This will be whoever's wealthier will have that opportunity to socialize, to be special, to be seen, and to even enter education equally. I understand the desire to say to parents, wake up. I am here without children in this school, and I am here because I remember when services were not given in a way that I felt my child should because of those cuts, and how badly that affected my child then and even to this day as she enters and tries to work. I again am going to ask parents to please show up. It is not a passive, it's an active thing to advocate for your child. There are entities that will do whatever they can to use this as a piggy bank. In terms of best value and cost to the town, this is just a delayed cost. Ultimately, parents that can afford it will choose elsewhere. Or it used to be that you could drive families out of a town. They would just move to a town that had better services. That no longer is the case. We are affordable to live, and there's no more houses elsewhere. So those parents are just going to choose those more expensive options. They're going to choose the Aggie. They're going to choose the VOTEC. More seats are opening up in those more expensive options. I think it's dangerous to see this as a cost savings when we are the best value. Investing in your best value could pull children back out or prevent more children going elsewhere. This is a delayed expense. This is not cost savings. So I see no value in cutting your best option and your most viable option. I see no value. I see more expense in your overall educational line as children go elsewhere. And it doesn't make sense from a money point of view. It doesn't make sense from an educational point of view. It just doesn't make sense. Unless you want to erode public education, cutting this budget makes no sense.
Stephanie, did you have your hand up?
I did, but I didn't know if Mr. King wanted.
Well, I usually let the board speak first.
Oh, sorry. So I was just actually going to ask Hillary, who's not very good at math, according to her, do you have a number, like a year, is your
I have no
recommendation?
number in mind.
You have no number in mind?
I'm looking at percentages, right? Because, and I'm sorry if I'm speaking over you, because every year in November and December, we hear from the town administrators or whomever from the towns through Jeff that 5% is all they can afford. 5% assessment. And there is a very, I don't want to put a blanket statement out there and say that most people don't understand the difference between our budget and our assessment, but I think if you pay attention to the conversations around the school committee's budget, the school district's budget, there is a very big misunderstanding of the difference between an assessment and a budget, because there were documents in Hanson that said that we were asking for a 10% budget increase. And of course, no one's going to vote for an override when we're asking for a 10% budget increase, but we weren't. Right? And so I think that that's part of it. I was just looking at the numbers. I think it's important that we just stick with the numbers and the facts, and we are in hold harmless. We are a hold harmless district, and because we are a hold harmless district, our minimum local contributions are going to continue to increase to try to get us out of that hold harmless. And if this is what's happening, it just doesn't make sense to me to say, well, the state says you should increase your spending by this percentage, but we're only going to ask you for 2%.
Especially when it's going to impact so many students drastically. All right, thank you.
Stephen has not. Stephen, you have numbers?
You have numbers.
Sure. Why not?
Oh.
Yep.
you look in this, if you look in the green section, I just tried to take away the curriculum money that you were suggesting from the Whitman proposal. So that's a 3% increase in our total budget. It would end up being a 6% assessment to the town of Hanson and a 4.89% assessment to the town of Whitman. To the right of that, in the orange copper color, I believe, Hillary, what you were asking was a 7% assessment to Hanson.
I was just looking at,
So
sure.
That scenario was a 3.6% increase to our overall budget. That 1.098 number, that would be a $1.1 million cut. So we would be dropping our reduction from 1.7 right now to 1.1 in that scenario. So those are just two different scenarios.
The green is what cut? How much would?
1.488. It's a 3% increase of our budget, which is one of our benchmarks that we spoke about a few years back, that we should be increasing the budget at least 3% overall. And then the gold, the copper is a 3.618% increases of our overall budget, and then the percentages are below. So if you go with the light green, it's a 1.4 million, almost a $1.5 million cut, which is $500,000 difference from what I have on your sheet. If it's the copper, it's, a million, little over $1 million, so it's almost $1 million difference in cuts to the district.
Thank you.
Yeah. Kara.
Oh, Kara. Oh, Chris, I'm sorry.
Just to kind of follow up on this, and Stephen, I got a question for you afterwards. Just going back to the budget reconciliation with the positions cut, this was a total of a $2 million cut, just over $2 million. What your initial thing was 1.7, call it 1.74 million.
Yes.
Okay. So the cuts here for the 2 million, that's to account for the additional
Unemployment.
unemployment for the reduction in workforce.
Stepping back, these numbers from Whitman came to me last week.
Yeah.
That was a month ago.
Okay.
The 2 million was when we spoke at the Whitman Finance Committee meeting, and they did some contingency numbers. That's what I was working on, in the fact that if numbers didn't change, that's what I had to be prepared for.
Okay, so forgetting this $2 million number here for a second, going with the 1.7 million, 1.74, we're talking about 260,000 more dollars available that could potentially be used to offset curriculum cuts.
Correct. Anything here.
Okay, perfect.
Anything here.
Now coming up to here. This right here, saying, all right, now we're talking about a $1.1 million cut instead of a $1.7 million cut. Now we're talking
600,000.
600 and something thousand. That fully offsets curriculum and some of these other things.
Some of
as
these
well,
other things, absolutely.
Okay.
Correct.
And going back to what you had said, Hillary, about the increase in the state required minimum contribution being approximately 7% on for both towns. Mm-hmm. That's what's populating this bronze section here, the last section here. Approximately.
I just backed into the number using 7% on the Hanson side.
Okay.
And there will always be a differential between the two towns too, so I can't match 5 and 5. There will always be a differential, and I think that's challenging as well.
And can I just add for people, because I just talked about this, when we look at the assessment, 7.6 equals 3.6, right? I'm going to be my teacher for a second, but people see the 7 and the 6 and they 13% budget, or they think the 7%. When we have a higher, or the assessment number, really like a higher assessment number doesn't mean a higher budget necessarily, right? I think when you think a 7% assessment, but really it's only a 3% budget increase, that's not, as we said, that was like our goal in like 2021. That was our goal, to maintain that. But that's, thank you.
Can we vote on that right now? Sorry, Kara.
The folks can take a motion and have discussion anytime.
I'd like to make a motion to vote on this.
You have to pull one of those numbers.
The one on the end. I'm colorblind, so.
The copper?
The copper, is that what you call it?
So
it's the 7%.
Yep.
6.1.
3.6.
So formally, it would be, I'd like to make a motion to the $65,207,398 as
Okay,
percent.
I'd like to make a motion on the $65,207,398 proposal.
Second.
And that would be to Hanson, 16,025,109.68, and to Whitman, 20,310,682.51.
I got a second.
Yeah. Now there's discussion.
Okay, now discussion. Kara, you had a previous discussion.
Well, yeah, I mean, sorry,
Well,
Glenn.
I'm sorry, I butted into you.
Okay, we can agree.
You can still discuss.
It's kind of disgusting, Stephen. So I just, Jeff, and again, I think I'm with Chris, like some of the numbers at the beginning were a little bit quick, so I was trying to jot them down. So the proposal that you have initially put forth here represented what dollar amount reduction for?
So I have two. The positions were based on a month ago.
Yeah.
That I had originally submitted to you.
Yeah.
What I'm, in my statement today, I was supporting the blue block, the Whitman proposal of a $1.7 million reduction. And I have not taken those off of these sheets.
Yes.
Because again, and I want to say, central office is very fluid over the summer because two people might resign and all of a sudden that salary is less than what I would have had in the first place. So these positions will be fluid, and that's why I say I still have openings. But that was originally what I was looking at based upon the numbers that I have been presented by both communities for you to discuss.
Yeah. All right, so just so we're clear, so the starting point for kind of this conversation has been a reduction from our level service budget of $1.7 million. If we default to a 1/12 budget, including unemployment costs, we're looking at cutting our district budget $3.7 million.
At this point,
approximately.
I know it's 3.3 off the top,
which is
right away.
It's a lot.
And I have to figure out where that comes from.
Yeah. My question, not because I want to entertain cutting this much from our budget, but I think for the public to hear, and I don't know if this is a Jeff question or a Stephen question, if we went with the $940,000 differential from the contingency budget in Hanson, what would that translate to when we to an overall cut in our district budget?
$2.4 million.
2.4 million.
2.4 million.
Okay, so 2.4 million is a lot more than 1.7 million.
Correct.
Okay, and our total budget, so our total budget is around, so that's about an eighth of our budget we're talking about? Am I looking at my numbers right? So that, again, that is why we have to have this conversation, why I feel we cannot just accept the number on the contingency budget in Hanson, even regardless of whether we agree or disagree that it even should have been proposed there. We cannot create an educationally sound budget that looks at cutting 2.5 or 3 or $3.5 million.
No.
I'm trying to understand this. I'm trying to understand what you're saying. Are you saying that if we challenge and say we have a budget, we're going into 1/12? Is that what you're trying to say? No.
For now.
All right, because that's not the case. If we challenge it,
Not saying that.
because that's not enough.
No, not saying that.
Okay.
Folks are
Sean?
itching.
I know you guys are itching.
Thank you. Sean Kane, 31 Forest Street, and Select Board member. It's a difficult conversation, and hearing some of the potential cuts that are going to occur, it's terrible. Terrible, terrible. Over the last 15 years, following the budget pretty closely, this is not good news. I think the tension I'm feeling, though, is we could have this similar discussion about the police department or the fire department or other departments in town, and it would be as heartbreaking. You know, you don't have an educationally sound budget, and there is flaws in our public safety that we currently have to deal with. You know, prior to the override, I'm completely with you guys pushing to take another step forward, or even just to hold on to what we're trying to keep for services. I thought we promoted the override fairly well. We can always improve, and it's important for us to hear some of the tension that you felt with the budget process, and I'm taking notes, and I want to improve that next year, for sure. I felt like we sold the override in a way that the people could get a feel for what would happen if they didn't support the override. And they didn't support the override. Once that happens, now we are in a zero-sum game. What you add on one side, you must take away from the other. To take away from the other, to take away from other town departments is significant. You know, it's a big deal. Whitman had to cut $600,000 out of our budget in addition to what we're cutting now that the override failed. It would be devastating. You know, I think Ms. Carter is going to share some of the impact of what we have given the current scenario. If we had to cut more, it's not something that I could support. I don't say that lightly. The amount of revenue that the town of Whitman collected last year that we can use towards the fiscal 26 operating budget, including the schools, is about $900,000. The schools, the current proposal that the superintendent proposed earlier, would be just over $800,000 of that revenue. So a little bit more than $800,000 of the $900,000 that we collected in revenue right now in the current proposal is going to the schools. That's pretty significant. You know, if we're looking at it from what we had last year and what we have this year to divvy up, that's a big chunk. It's hard for us to make those arguments with departments. You know, we're feeling pain, and we really went out of our way to try to create a plan that was collaborative, that didn't include the leadership throughout the process. And I really feel like this step, the superintendent's proposal, is one that I can stand behind at town meeting and advocate for. Going above, though, is something I would really feel significant tension about. I'd have to answer the department heads who would be very unhappy. We'd have to lay off more people that I couldn't really justify. And it's terrible, but I think that's the situation we're in.
Mary Beth?
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. Mary Beth Carter, 896 Auburn Street, and I'm the town administrator. Today was a bad day, and tonight is a bad night here, and it's difficult for all of us. But I just want to outline some of the news that, you know, I had to pass on already, just based on the number that we provided to Jeff. In the assessor's office, there's one administrative position not funded. Other than the assessor, there are only 2 people in the office, so the administrative position will not be funded. The town clerk's office, again, 2 employees other than the clerk. The clerical position, not funded. The police department, we reduced that budget by the equivalent of 2 officers, plus another 90,000 or so on that. And the same with the fire department, 2 positions, the equivalent of that. We reduced their all other services line. The building department, I had to inform the building inspector today that his full-time position will be reduced to a part-time position. And he informed me, nope, not happening. I'm beginning to look for a job, and good luck finding a part-time building inspector. But he's out as of July 1st. DPW, 2 positions not funded. Health Department, administrative assistant. Revised budget reflects a reduction in her hours. So we took the administrative assistant back to where she was 3-4 years ago in hours. Council on Aging, 1 part-time clerical position not funded. Veterans Service Director, I had to contact him. He's at a conference away for the week. I had to call him today. He just started with us, doing an excellent job. We just hired him just a couple of months ago, and tell him that I was cutting him back to part-time as well. In the library, we have 1 part-time library technician position that will not be funded. In the recreation, I had zeroed out the entire department. I met with the recreation director, Kathleen Woodward, who does an outstanding job. We did keep 1 line, the salary line, in the budget. We zeroed out the other 2 lines for expenses and salaries for the park and pool. She's going to try to navigate that with the revolving fund. She's going to cut back or cancel the 4th of July events and the Easter events that she does, the other activities. But she had already collected money, for 6 weeks of the program, for the summer program. So she's going to try to manage that with most of the budget cut. And then, let's see. That was before I did any of these cuts, I had already gone through the budget. I had already gone through line by line and cut all the other lines to a bare minimum. When I say there's nowhere else to cut and that these will be felt by all, it's terrible. And I'm just hoping that you will support the recommendation of Jeff, because anything more than that, this is drastic, and anything more is just going to decimate the town. And I see us then go into a super town meeting. I see it on a 1/12 budget. The town will be put on a 1/12 budget as well. We're not going to like it, but we'll do it. So please, I hope that you vote Jeff's recommendation.
Justin?
Justin Evans, 57 Candlewick Lane, and Select Board member. I wanted to line up behind those two because now there's not much for me to add. Just that I see, to echo what Mary Beth said at the end, with anything less than the cuts that Jeff is recommending, that with that budget, I see a hard time, first of all, us balancing the budget in a week with those cuts, but then our town meeting also approving that number, which would lead to a super town meeting. I looked this up, this week. The district calls the super town meeting. The select boards jointly appoint a moderator. It would be a weird scenario. We'd all have to work together on it. It will be tense circumstances. So I just wanted to kind of emphasize with the budget has been rejected now by both town meetings in the contingent scenario. Whitman does not have a budget right now, and Hanson voted a lower assessment, which is in effect rejecting your budget. One more time that either town rejects it goes to the super town meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Jeff, I have a question for you. This was, your list was made before, and your list includes 2 million.
2 million, yes.
But it's really 1.7?
If that's what's approved today.
So $300 automatically goes off
$300,000
this.
come off of that, correct.
So this number, does everybody understand that? So this
That would
list,
protect curriculum.
It could.
that would
yeah.
basically could protect curriculum.
It could.
That's my question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure, because we're looking at this is a cut with the 2 million, but with the Whitman number that we go by, if we go by that, it's 300,000 difference already. Okay, so just so everybody knows that.
I didn't want to make an assumption either way, because I kind of split it right in the middle, and it's a number that you had before when we talked about this in early May.
So, I mean, either way, Hanson's changes.
Yep.
Because if we go by the number that Whitman gave us, because we feel that that's what it is, and the Hanson people are telling me they're not really sure about the Hanson number, that would change. So Hanson's would definitely change, but they don't have a town meeting even set up yet, so.
Yes.
That takes in. Glenn?
I don't think I'm first. I think I've been Karen.
Oh, Stephanie was?
Stephanie, sorry.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just want to say, I think my biggest problem, and I mean, I don't want your jobs for anything in the world, trust me, I'm not sure I want mine, but I think that my biggest problem is that a lot of the people who voiced not supporting the override said they're blowing smoke, nothing's going to change, there'll be no impact. And obviously, Mary Beth just gave us what the impact is going to be, but unfortunately, all of these things that the school district and Jeff and his team have put together to hide all of the cracks that are really being opened up. And even though maybe not everybody in town will see the problems with this and will be impacted, people, kids will be impacted. And it's so important for us to keep that in mind. I don't want fewer of any of these, positions. I know people who work at these places. I like these people. I go to the town hall. I enjoy the people who work there. I'm not looking for any of these to be cut, but 1/20th of our positions are being chopped off. I don't think I mean, maybe I don't know what the size of the other departments are, but a 20th of any of these other positions, and I mean, granted, town clerk, that sounds like 33% of the town clerk's office.
It's a lot more
But
than 20th.
but those are small
I think she meant 1/5.
Okay.
departments compared to 476 people who are employed here. So I think we just have to look at what the impact is going to be to the kids.
So just before you go, Glenn, I know you have some, I just also want to caution to what a 1/12 is. That releases us, I have no control. And that could be, if we push this to a super town and it's not voted, it goes to another super town. And I believe there was another district that this happened to in 2018-ish.
Dayton, Rehoboth.
Another regional, that the commissioner had the budget until December, and then that person sets it for the town, and you have no say. So they can say, no, I want to go with that number up there, and you have no funding. So that's the dance. I don't want to minimize it by saying dance, but I lose fiscal control as of July 1st, and we get a number from that person, and it could be up. It could be that number. It's not going to be lower than FY25. So that's that piece that I have, and then I look at the impact of where we're at, and I have critical needs right now, and I can't hire someone in good faith when they come to me for a contract, and I say, I don't know if I have the dollars to back up that salary line. So that's the predicament that I'm in on June 4th, and I know also, and Beth said this, Hanson has not set a town meeting date yet. So we still might be at a 1/12 no matter what. That's up to the purview of the select board on June 10th, whether or not they set that meeting. So that also makes me quite nervous.
Glenn?
All right, after hearing the speakers and hearing about the $300,000 difference, I want to know if I can make a motion to withdraw my motion to vote on
Who
that.
was your second? Who was your
I
second?
haven't got one yet.
No.
No, your original.
Was it?
Oh, Steve.
Steve, do you withdraw?
Yes.
Okay.
You may
So that's off
withdraw.
the table.
So that's off the
Nothing.
table.
It's after 8:30, so I make a motion to vote to continue.
All in favor of continuing?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay.
No? One no. Okay.
And now I want to make a motion to vote.
Well, we already have that.
Okay.
Okay, that motion is still on because you dropped yours.
Okay,
So
good.
we still have the original motion with Jeff's numbers minus 300,000.
Did we get?
Oh, we're already in discussion.
Discussion for minutes, no motion on that.
Oh, I thought we had.
No, I think we need to have that.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to vote on, I don't know all the language.
So that's this budget.
Yes.
The blue.
Steve, you're
The blue.
with us.
On $64,564,205.55 for
Yes.
Yeah.
proposed budget for
You need a
2025.
Second.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I missed that number.
It's on the blue.
It's on the blue.
It's the blue one.
So which means for Hanson, it's 15,775,031.08. For Whitman's assessment is 19,917,568.65. Okay, so that's the vote. That's
That's the motion on the-
That's the
Was there a
motion.
second?
There was a second.
Yes,
Okay,
Steve.
thanks,
Steve
Steve.
seconds.
Are you going to have any discussion?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm waiting for it.
Yeah, you.
Yes, did you want to discuss first?
No, I'm good. I'm
He's
just
good.
trying to make this move forward.
Thank you.
This has been circular.
I want to remind people that municipal budgets and with the standard municipal budget for each town and the schools are different. In the town budgets, they can go back to the finance committee and they can ask for money in the fall when it's often millions have been coming from free cash or the state has given more money than they expected. That is not allowed for us. We cannot go back. The towns, year after year, have said that they have nothing. And pretty close to every year, it's in the millions that they wind up with, that other departments can go back for, and we cannot. I think good faith means that you say something and it's true at least once in a while. But every time they've said they don't have money, it's been tucked away somewhere, and they come back. And I've been on finance. I've been there when they're asking for money again in other departments, and it is not given here. So, again, this is not a reasonable financial place to take money, as it will cause financial problems in an educational line. Next year, it will just grow that educational line. And it's just easy pickings. That's all it is. It's a patch.
Thank you.
Chris, you have?
I just had a quick question. Oh, I'm sorry.
I wasn't done.
Sorry, go ahead.
I wasn't done.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's what I keep asking. You often do that. So I'm going to ask you to just ask me if I'm done before you move on to someone else. Thank you.
Finished.
Thank you. So if we're making cuts and we're also seeing departments in the town grow at 16%, some, maybe IT went up about 16%, and we're seeing year after year $2 million in free cash that comes rolling out. Free cash is not an accident of budgeting when it is as consistent as it been in some of these towns. It is a purposeful put away, tuck away of money away from the schools. These same asks are not being asked of the vocational school. They're not being asked of other bills. They're only being asked of the children that are currently getting the least amount that you're paying for any of your education, your best deal per student. So I would ask that you consider that and not just rush into this. Again, we have a budget. We have a budget. We don't even have to make this vote.
Chris, are you done?
You all set?
Are you done?
She asked you if you were done.
Thank you, Chris.
So just logistically going back to this assessment recommendation that you're making, Whitman, the town of Whitman has agreed to that number.
Yes.
The town of Hanson has not.
But they don't even have.
Correct. So they have nothing, what they have approved is that $940,000 number as the contingent, which whether it's legit or not, who knows. So this $677,000 number that we're at this recommendation suggesting to the town of Hanson, they would have to approve that. So we could go back to them with this assessment that nobody here at this table likes, and all of a sudden it doesn't matter anyway because they don't approve it, and now we're back at super town meeting anyway.
Potentially.
Potentially.
Yeah, okay. I just want to understand.
Yeah, they have to put it on the warrant. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
They have to put it on the warrant. And then I guess the tricky part is that Whitman has a town meeting first. And so what happened last year was the school budget was covered in Whitman, but it was not covered or approved in Whitman. It was not approved in Hanson, and then Hanson had another. And so essentially, you don't want to go to a super town meeting for a lot of different reasons, but it does, this predicament definitely does back someone into a corner. But I think cutting $940,000 from our budget backs us into a corner, and the chair of our select board called that a draconian cut at our town meeting, and whether that was rhetoric to get the override passed or if they meant that. I mean, I think no one likes this, but compromise is something that we talk about a lot on this committee, and I think that this is a very good compromise that we are making. Good in the sense that we're making a lot of cuts. Good faith, not good for the kids, not good for the district. And I think, it is what it is, and, it is what it is.
And to clarify, Whitman would still have to vote this Wednesday. It's not an approved, it's their proposal.
Supported by the Finance Committee and Select Board. And it would be advertised as at that time.
I believe so.
Okay.
And then I would send, whatever is voted tonight, I will send a letter to Mary Beth and to Lisa Green. And then that topic would be discussed already at Whitman for next week. I don't think you have a select board meeting next Tuesday. Yeah, but on June 10th, Hanson would have a select board. They would have to, one, authorize a new town meeting because there's a new assessment, and that could be anywhere between a certain amount of days and somewhere in July, to put that number on a warrant article.
So I guess just final clarification, this number right here in the blue that you're asking us to recommend and vote is supported by the town of Whitman, not necessarily currently by the town of Hanson.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Come on up, Laura. Laura Kemet, Chair of the Hanson Select Board. So just to clarify, because I kind of hear where you're coming from here, we could not set a special town meeting because we did not know what the budget, whether you would reconfirm the budget, what number you'd come back. But obviously, if this continues and the vote is taken tonight, we are planning on talking about it at our Tuesday meeting. And of course, in anticipation of that, we've been working with our town accountant, our attorney, et cetera, town clerk to figure out a town moderator on availability and all of that. So we have 14 days to post for a special town meeting, which this would be because we've already held our annual town meeting. I am 1/5 of the vote, so I just want to clarify that I am only speaking for myself and not for the board because we have not met. It is my intention to have this meeting before the end of the year, so that we are not going into a 1/12 budget. That is my intention. Thank you. And I will make that case on Tuesday, and I will urge that cooler heads prevail and that we all try to do the best we can with the situation that we're in now. But I do want to also address a comment that I keep hearing, which is that we're willy-nilly accruing free cash. Last year, in anticipation, knowing that the override last year didn't pass, and seeing where we were probably going to be this year, our town accountant said, let's claw back every article that we've ever had that nobody spent money on. We actually had a couple departments go like, we were going to spend that money, so we didn't really appreciate you guys clawing that back. That got us a lot more free cash than we typically have had, in anticipation that, again, if we had to do an override this year and it didn't pass, all of which has come to fruition, that we would not completely be eviscerating our budget, that we would have some bandwidth there. So that was the thought process. And I'm sorry if people don't believe that the town of Hanson is acting in good faith, but I can tell you that we are, and that there are no shenanigans. And all of our meetings have been in open, all of our discussions about this are open meetings, being recorded with minutes. Feel free to file a Freedom of Information Act request if you've got any doubt about that, and reach out to us individually. Lisa's our town administrator, Lisa Green, is extremely responsive. I am extremely responsive. People reach out to me all the time and ask questions. I do agree with comments that Mr. Kane made. Of course, hindsight's 20/20, and we talk about this every year, that we have to be better about communicating with one another earlier, and we never do it. And I think you guys made progress with Whitman this year. And I'm not laying this on anybody. I'm saying collectively we have failed in that regard. So one of the things that I would like to think about doing, and you're not posted to talk about it or even deliberate, but I would like to have it embedded in our regional agreement, that there are certain steps that must be achieved along the way for these conversations. Like March, this must happen. April, this much must happen. That type of a thing. I hate to prescribe, processes and procedures, but the kind of winging it isn't working. And we're all here now, and we've got an appreciation, and we're developing relationships, but next year it could be a totally different group of people, and I think by embedding that there's a process and procedure to make sure that there's early collaboration and communication is absolutely critical. So again, I'm not laying blame anywhere. I think it's a collective failure. So that's really all I had to say. But I do want to try to assure you, because I felt like you were maybe being anxious, and I'm not trying to project, maybe it's me being anxious, that this wasn't going to get pulled off by July 1st. It is my intention on Tuesday to set the date, and at this point, based on the town moderator's availability, it likely would be the 25th of June or the 30th of June. Those are the only 2 days that he's available within that. We've got 14 days to post and da-da-da. So just FYI. But again, we have not deliberated about this as a board. This is just one gal giving her perspective.
Thank you, Laura.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Naco?
Hi, Stephen Miko, 95 Stevens Street in Hanson, and also a member of the Finance Committee. I want to reiterate what Laura said about the free cash. We had our town accountant go through every article that was never spent, and there were a lot of people who were upset. Some of the stuff were that grants were given, and we didn't know that there was a grant given for something, and that money had just sat there. On top of that, we, as a town, only approved a very minimal amount of spending at our last town meeting in anticipation that we were going to be here again. There was a lot of departments that got nothing. At this point right now, we're on the board for losing at least one firefighter, and you bring up, 1/20th, we only got 16 firefighters. We're losing one. That's a bigger number than the 1/20th. So we're in the same boat that Whitman. If this goes any deeper, then we're eviscerating our departments. There is just nowhere for us to go. We just don't have the funds, and we're doing everything that we can. I sat there in your seat once, and we had the same discussions, and things happened. There were budget cuts. There were increases when there could be. The towns just don't have the money. I mean, there's no money sitting under a mattress. I mean, some people may think that there's money hidden. There is no money hidden. We can't hide it. Everything has to be public, and it's all there. There is no money hidden, and it's all up front. We're very, very upfront with everything in our town, and I know Whitman is the same way. So it's not like there's money hidden under a mattress. So, that's all I really had to say. Hopefully this goes with Jeff's, and we have a meeting again on Tuesday evening, same time as the Board of Selectmen. So, this is some things that will be brought up at our Finance Committee meeting on Tuesday evening as well.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Move to vote.
Yes.
I'd like to move to vote.
Second.
All in favor of moving to vote? Okay. 9-1. All right. All in favor of Jeff's recommendation, the blue, in the blue? Not that, nope. So, okay.
We need like the actual paperwork. Do we need the script?
Do I have to read something again?
Yeah, isn't there a script?
You vote it, and then he has to read it in.
Okay.
Just read the numbers, and we can put them on the letter.
Sure. The operating assessments to the two towns, Hanson, $15,775,031.08. Whitman, $19,917,568.65.
For the total of?
Okay.
For a total of $64,564,205.55.
Okay. All in favor? Raise your hand. Okay. 8. And opposed? And abstain?
I'm not participating in this budget.
Abstaining, I guess. One no, one abstain.
Okay, that's
Okay.
It's passed. It's passed.
We would have to vote to keep going.
Yes. We need to vote again to keep going.
I think we can take.
Before we do that, I would like to suggest we have another meeting in June.
Sure.
Schedule. because we do have quite a few things here that need to be addressed.
18th or 25? 18 or 25?
Yeah.
Well, don't do 25, because that might be Hanson Town Meeting.
So the 18th of June, can everybody put
I
that
can.
in?
I can do it.
I can't be here for that.
They're going to get some too.
I'll be in Disney.
Can anybody do it?
Yeah.
I can't be here.
Good, see if we have a quorum.
Okay, who can you raise your hand if you could make the 18th, please?
Kara, can you make the 8th? Okay, oh, sorry.
I mean, I'm on summer vacation, sure.
Right. I'm not going away to.
Okay, we have a quorum.
DJ, you can't?
It's supposed to be a conservation same night, but I'm in.
Okay.
6:30.
Yeah, we'll do 6:30. So that way, is there anything that you want to?
I would just like to, no, I think that's going to be a long conversation.
Oh,
I can take that, then we'll go from there. The only thing I really want to do is some good news, and that's the donation approval.
Okay.
If you don't mind, we can table everything else.
okay.
Sure.
And I'll give some reading items.
Do you need a motion to pass over or table that stuff? or-
Motion to pass over everything but donation.
Okay, so can I have do I have a motion?
Second.
Okay. All right, so we're going to the donation approval.
I think we need to vote on the motion, don't we?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm tired. All in favor? Okay. All right, go ahead to the donation.
Yeah, so I received a donation. I'm requesting the committee vote to accept the donation of the amount of $125,000 from the estate of Ronald W. Dickinson.
Very nice.
Ronald was previously a student at Whitman-Hanson Regional High School, passed away in June of 2024, and is listed the Whitman-Hanson Regional School Scholarship Fund as being one of the recipients of his estate. The $125,000 represents a partial distribution from his current estate value. When his estate has been finalized and or closed out, an additional donation will be forwarded.
And is this for the scholarship?
That's what it says. And we're also, we're reaching out to see if that can be provided somewhere else as well. There's been no direction or what scholarship that might be. So I just wanted to accept that.
Make a motion to accept the donation?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
I have public comment.
Oh, we have public comment?
Yeah.
No, public comment.
Don?
Don Byers, 20 Russell Road. This time I don't have a prepared statement, so I wanted to speak to some of the comments made. I do believe a 112 budget isn't to be feared if that's what happens, because the commissioner will review and has the ability to look at what was already approved at both town meetings and look at those assessments, especially the Whitman assessment at town meeting, regardless of the override. I think that a commissioner will look at how underfunded this district already is and say, you need to do better. And I'll look at what your members in both towns did set for the assessment. So please don't listen to the fear of the 112th or the commissioner. I believe he values education, and I question some people in this room who may not value it as much as I would expect the commissioner to. I'd liked Mr. Mark's response in reaching out to your state reps, and also for having the budget book, because I still have the budget book. This is the proposed one, and I question what was voted tonight on the new budget, because your role is to vote that by line item. So I do hope that you all received all this line item detail by DESI account number, showing what the new spending is, because apparently that's what your new spending is in that budget tonight. But what are you spending it on? What are you spending? The recommendation of, the regional agreement going forward to include in that a schedule, right? Communication going forward sounds great. Remember that the existing regional agreement already had language that it was supposed to be revisited every 5 years. We're still working on that from decades ago, and it probably would have fixed that statutory assessment problem in 2020 had both towns followed their own regional agreement and followed that schedule to revisit that on a timely manner. Full day K tuition, reinstating it, shameful, shameful, because as Ms. Hill mentioned, 78 Whitman students were half-time, in 2019. It means 78 families. And when she said it was the most in the state, she's right. Because the cities of Brockton, cities of Springfield, all those cities had full day K. So yeah, you may say, oh, there's other locations that have, low-income, poverty families. They probably weren't paying. They had access to full day K since 1999. And Whitman-Hanson was 23 years behind on doing that. So we finally did it. But yet, of those remaining towns in 2019, 2020, that were still charging for tuition, they were the likes of Hingham, Hanover, Cohasset. And do you know how many kids were going half day? 2, 3. I looked at the numbers, I knew the numbers. So there wasn't a deficit in those towns because they all could afford it. It was the town of Whitman, among all the towns in Massachusetts, that had 78 kids. So if anyone thinks bringing back $3,200 tuition on all of those children is going to generate income, subtract 78 times 3,200. You're not getting $250,000 in revenue because families don't have the ability to pay that. They can't afford it. Now, the towns have funding. They'll decide how they choose to spend it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Okay.
Thank you, see you.
The 18th.